Okay, hello. I've been so used to using the microphone lately to talk to camera. Like, I almost feel more comfortable talking to the camera if I have a microphone in my hand than when I don't. But let me know if this is a little bit too extra. So I wanted to sit down and do a Q&A with you guys. I haven't really done a Q&A in a long time. Like, I think my last formal Q&A was probably a year ago or maybe 2 years ago. Also, if you notice, I'm fidgeting with my hair. People on my Instagram and podcast probably already know, but I cut my hair accidentally and now it is just what I like to call a mullet, but I think it's more of a wolf cut. But I wanted to do a Q&A because I haven't chatted with you guys and like sat down and kind of talked through what's going on in my life. So we have our Nami matcha in an Arc'teryx steel cup, which we got at this Arc'teryx event that James got invited to, and we were just eyeballing this cup, but they told us to take it home, so I'm really glad that they did let us keep it. But I asked you guys for your questions on my Instagram, and I got a lot of questions this time around. And I think it's because I've been away from YouTube for a while, and also I feel like there's some new viewers from the podcast. So hello if you're new to the channel, and I just wanted to answer them because I know there's been some things I've been going through that I wanted to talk about. So let's jump into it. I think one of the bigger questions that I've been getting just in general is around what it's been like coming back to work after taking a mental health leave. So I was actually away from mid-June to the rest of the summer, and it didn't really seem like that on my channel because I had some videos in the backlog that I was posting when I started my leave. So I think it was a little confusing for some of my audience members to think that I was away for maybe 4 weeks when it was longer than that. But one of the questions that I've been getting a lot is, how has it been going back to work after a mental health leave? I think I'm still adjusting back, and I'm trying to figure out my routine and my schedule again. Something I mentioned in a previous video is that I've been really looking forward to having routine, because when I was on my leave, I had my schedule, but it was very self-directed, and at every point in my life, I've always had school or like internships, or just if I'm traveling, travel plans. And this is the first time that my own personal schedule has been completely self-directed. So I think it was a really great time to reflect on what I wanted to do with myself, but also a really great time to figure out what having a self-driven routine is. So right now I'm going through the exercise of figuring out what my work-life balance and routine around that is. So I can't lie and say that it's just been so easy to readjust back to work. But I will say that going back to work has reminded me of the pros of working corporate, which is having that camaraderie with your team. And I forgot how much I enjoyed getting lunch with my team. I always try to get lunch with my team because they're just such fun people to be around. And so I think they've made my adjustment back a lot better. And the thing that I mentioned in my last video on this channel is I came back to so much change, and right now we're going through change too, with the whole org and just movement of teams and like restructuring of projects. And so I think I didn't really expect so much change, and the way that my work has been structured in the past is I've been assigned tasks and projects on features, and it's really clear and directed what I'm supposed to be doing. But this time around, coming back on the team, it almost feels like working at a startup in a way. Not that I've ever worked longer term in a startup. My only experience has ever been at an internship. There's been a lot of work change, and I didn't expect it going back into work. But I think overall the adjustment has been good. I've just found work-life balance a little more challenging. It has always been hard for me to sit at a desk for 8 hours and work. Obviously, there's lunch times and breaks, and you can get up and go around. But I think the crux of my workday has always just been sitting at a desk and working. And so when I was on my leave, I could actually get up in the middle of the day and go to the gym. I could go out and take a walk, and I could pick up lunch if I wanted to like get takeout that day. And so there's a lot of organic routine, I feel like, that's been taken out of my life again. But then there's more structured work routine that's back in. And I'm just going to leave it at that because I think I'm still formulating my opinions around the different lifestyles. And yeah, the next question is, what do you think led to your burnout, and what advice would you give your past self to avoid it? I have had cycles of burnout in the past, and so it's not very new to me. I think this time around it was just more paired with the physical health concerns that I had that made me realize that I need to be better to myself. I actually recorded an episode of the podcast with my friend Lillian recently, and she had gone through something similar in the past, and I think it really made me reflect when she was going through all the struggles of work-life balance and trying to juggle corporate with content creation and everything else she's been doing. And something she mentioned in the podcast episode was how you need to really listen to your body, especially when you're younger and you think you can push off all the signals that your body is telling you when your back hurts or when you have headaches or when you feel ill. I think the past year, whenever I've been extremely stressed and had anxiety around what I'm doing, my body has responded in small ways. So there was a period where I felt really nauseous every day, and I couldn't explain why. I wasn't sick with a virus or like bacterial infection, and it was extremely bad. And then that transitioned into back pains and chronic back pains, where I would have shoulder pains, and then it became shoulder pains and neck pains. And now I feel like I've lost some mobility in my neck because it hurts like moving all directions. And I think every year that I have more and more health problems, I just realize how dire it can get if I just don't take care of myself. But the burnout itself, I think, comes from many different sources. The beginning of the year, I think my mental health was suffering a lot because of everything that had happened the months prior. I don't think I've ever actively shared the whole journey of like Moose having FIP and us having to treat him for those 3 months, and then him having more medical conditions like entropion that we had to get surgery twice for. But I think all the challenges that James and I went through in that period and all the stress and worry we had around Moose and if he would get better really took like a mental toll on me. And I felt like at that time, during the workday, after the workday, when we had to do injections for him, I was just constantly questioning if he would survive. And I think that really tore me apart because I was constantly anxious about what would happen with him, and at the same time I was going through my own reflections on how the year had gone. And I hadn't if you watch my podcast, you know that I felt like I didn't do that much. And then at the beginning part of the year, once Moose was getting better, I had more time to like reflect on myself and my career. And I think I've just burnt out because truthfully it is very hard working a job and also making content. But also with my job, I felt like I've been kind of stagnant, and like the growth and career progression for me wasn't necessarily there. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with my career, and having to go through the constant exercise of thinking about different career paths and trying to decide what would be best for me was challenging. And at the same time, I think sometimes with content creation, you have to put a good face forward and you have to act like you're happy and act like things are good. I think I try to shed that wall as much as I can, but it is hard also to sometimes fully show you guys all the times I'm crying, all the times that I'm going through it, and all the times that like life feels so overwhelming. So I think I was going through burnout in a lot of places in my life, but that's not to detract from the fact that in these cycles of burnout, you can still have good moments. And so a lot of what I was showing of my life was like the highlight reel and like what was going well in my life. And I think there were just so many symptoms for me during the last year that I realized that I just needed to take care of myself. So obviously back pain was one of it. The malaise, or like the feeling of being nauseous and sick constantly, was another one of it. I had a couple of weeks where I would just burst out crying at pretty much anything. And I just remember there was that period of like a month where every single day something would trigger this like very bad reaction, and I would just start crying for like an hour. And then the other thing is I was noticing myself having ADHD symptoms too, and then that was mixed with anxiety and stress, and I just found myself not being able to focus and not being able to execute on my work and my day job. I think the correct terminology is executive dysfunction. And before I took my leave, I took so many measures to see if I could fix my issues. I was doing physical therapy. I was going to psychiatrist and therapist appointments. My psychiatrist diagnosed me with medium to severe depression and anxiety. and I was very resistant to go on antidepressants. And so I was trying to find like any way possible to not have to go on antidepressants. And so that was like, those were all the months leading up to my leave. And the moment that I decided that I had to take it was when I realized that none of my issues were getting better and it was just getting worse. And the quality of my work was suffering too. And I couldn't feel present when I was in any part of my life. Like I couldn't pay attention to friends when I was talking to them. I couldn't pay attention to my manager when he was talking to me. And there are so many parts of my life that felt like they were just falling apart. I really wanted to document more of it and like show what it is like. I pushed myself to like record moments where I was crying, but it just doesn't feel right to be documenting all that. I'm gonna be honest, I think for a lot of people, taking a few weeks or months off of work is not the solution. Like it doesn't fix mental health issues completely, but I just think it was a very valuable time for me to reflect and actually take care of myself. And I'm trying to continue taking care of myself as I go back to work, but it's a really tough topic. And I know a lot of you guys who have reached out and like shown your support have also said that you've either gone through mental health, a mental health leave, or are thinking of going through one. And I know a lot of you guys who have reached out to me also have either been going through burnout or wanting to take a mental health leave, or have gone through a mental health leave and wanted to share your experience. But I think mental health just isn't talked about enough. And as people who are maybe younger, maybe older, your body is never the last thing that you should prioritize. It should always be the first thing. I think for me, I pushed it off for so long up until my breaking point. And as people and as humans, I don't think we should ever let ourselves get to the point where something like a mental health leave or a breaking point has to be the reason that you take a pause and take a break. I don't know if that makes sense, but I really, really think that there should be more open discussions about mental health. So that is what I'm trying to do, sharing my experience as well. And yeah, there are so many questions about career that I got as well, including my 5-year plan, navigating taking leave, and climbing the corporate ladder. So I really think I'm going to do a career Q&A soon, because I haven't done that in also a year. So I'm going to try to address those questions in my career Q&A. The next questions were all around freezing my eggs and why I did it and that whole process. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. If you guys have watched the last 2 videos that I put out, I also did freeze my eggs recently and in the period of my mental health leave. And one of the questions that I got is, why did I freeze my eggs so young? And I'm 27 right now. Truthfully, I do think I did it a little early, on the earlier side. So definitely don't feel pressured if you're watching me and you're like around my age and you're seeing me go through this and you're like, oh shoot, I need to like think about fertility and stuff. I do think it's really important to think about and talk about, especially if you have a partner that you're considering fertility with. But part of why I did it was actually because I had this period of my mental health leave, and just looking at my career and the time that I have generally on a day-to-day basis, I just knew that if I were to continue my work and everything else that I'm doing with my life, I don't know if there's ever another time in my life, if I wanted to freeze my eggs, at least in the next year or two, where I would have that pocket of like 2 to 3 weeks to do it. James and I have been dating for a while. We've been dating for 7 years, and we have had discussions about our future and like where we want to take it. And both of us kind of came to the conclusion that we probably won't be having kids in the next 5, maybe 10 years. I know my mom watches this, so I don't want her to freak out watching this, but I think we came to the realization that it would be a while before we tried for kids. And also because we have our own career ambitions and objectives that we're trying to work towards, that might take 5 years or longer. So I think that was a big pushing point for me to think about fertility and what I wanted to do if I wasn't going to plan for kids in the next couple of years. Kids has always been such an important part of me. I've always wanted kids early, and I've always thought I'd have kids before 25, but things just haven't played out that way. And the way that my life is going right now, I don't think I will have the ability to be a good parent until I'm over 30. So when I was on my leave, I really took it very seriously to make plans so that I could prepare for the future. So the actual process of egg freezing is not that long in terms of time duration. It is possibly emotionally taxing, and for me it was very emotionally taxing, maybe because I was already dealing with my own mental health issues. But the process that I went through was 3 injections a day, and part of the beginning you only had to do 2 injections at night, but then it became a morning injection and then 2 injections later into the day. And every other day I would have to go into the office, get my blood taken, and to get a sonogram. So that was actually the more time intensive thing, having to go into the office every day. Maybe this was one of the reasons why I was also going through more emotional turmoil while I was doing the egg freezing. But I felt like I looked really bad during that time, and I felt really ugly looking at myself in the mirror. I also had to avoid working out during that period too, because you don't want to jeopardize anything by putting pressure on your body and your abdominal area. So I couldn't work out, and I was getting such bad acne around my cheeks, and you probably won't notice because I have been wearing really good Fenty foundation, but I've been dealing with so much hormonal acne because of that too. And I just thought I looked really bad. I think I had moon face as well. I remember I was getting dinner with my friends Lois and Julia, and I was just in the middle of the whole process, and I just like broke down at the table. I think it was emotionally more tough for me than I had expected, and I'm really glad that I did do it during my mental health leave. But that's also kind of why I rushed it, because I wanted to do it during this period that I knew that I would be gone from work. So that is what pushed me to actually get it done now. And so if you're someone watching and you're younger than me, or even if you're around the same age, do not feel rushed into it. It's a process that I think you need to give yourself some grace for. Like, take the time, and then also let yourself have a breather. And then for peace of mind, my doctor told me that I was one of the younger people that they had seen in the office. Usually people freeze their eggs in their 30s. The other thing that I wanted to mention is I know there was a comment in one of my videos about me using the term IVF, and I do really apologize for misusing it, because IVF is actually the process of also putting the egg that is retrieved, fertilized egg, back into the body so that you can get pregnant and try to have a kid. I wanted to make that correction because part of this process, a lot of people have been using the term IVF with me, including my doctors and the nurses, probably because most of the time IVF is just like the beginning process and the ending process, and they can't distinguish like who's who. But I've also had my friends who have gone through egg retrieval also use the term IVF. So in my head, it kind of just got conflated. But I'm not aiming for a pregnancy right now. So I've been trying to be very mindful of like what terms I've been using. And I do apologize if in the previous videos it was a bit confusing and also a little bit uneducated of me to say IVF. Just wanted to address that. The next question is around the relationship. Since James has been more part of my content recently and also on the podcast, I've been getting a lot of questions about marriage with James and like what we are planning to do and when we want to get married. I'm pretty open to getting married. Like, we always randomly will say like, oh, let's just go get married this weekend. Like, let's go to the courthouse and like get that certificate, get that marriage certificate. But maybe this is my overthinking as like an immigrant child. If I get married, I want to give time to the wedding planning process for my parents, because I know that they only have one opportunity, hopefully, to see me get married. But I really want to have the time and the space to plan a wedding and plan the wedding the way that I want it to be. And since we already live together, I feel like we're functionally the same as a married couple. So I don't feel super rushed into getting married. If this were Sarah from like 3 years ago, I think I would have wanted to get married by now. But I do constantly see my friends getting engaged nowadays. The older I get, the more people there are that get engaged. And I'm like, wait a second. But I think since James and I know that we are secure and that we both have the intention of getting married, I don't think either of us are very rushed. And we had this discussion around the time we were having this discussion about kids and what we wanted to do with that. I think we're okay just waiting on that, and we might get engaged. Like, I know last year I had a video where I was kind of hinting at the fact that we would get engaged, and we were planning to. But then I think, especially living in the city, I think life just catches up. And so anytime we have a plan around something, it very easily gets just like shattered. But I think this is the most secure I've ever felt in a relationship. And this is the most secure I've ever felt in my relationship with James. And I hope it's the same for him. So I don't think marriage is a big question mark for us. We definitely want to get married, but the question mark is just when. So I hope that answers it. And the other question that I got around the relationship was also if I was planning to be in New York City forever and in New York City with James. And this is another thing that I've been thinking about a lot. I've been in New York for cumulatively maybe 4 years at this point, but I feel like I've been here for much longer and I've been wanting change a lot. Like I've been really craving change in some way. And there are some places that I want to try living in. James always makes fun of me for wanting to live in Jersey for a bit, but I do think my pace of life would slow down a lot if I moved to Jersey, and maybe some of the chaotic energy that is in my head will be dissipated. Part of it is we've been also looking for apartments just in New York City. So I don't know if I actually want a change of city or if I want a change of apartment, because as much as I love the apartment, I feel like we're also kind of outgrowing it. We've been living here for 2 years already. And I think this apartment unfortunately carries a lot of memories around like Moose's FIP journey. And so there's some, I don't know if it's bad feng shui or like just some aura. That term is so popular now. If it's some negative energy around the apartment, but I really think sometimes I'm looking for the next apartment. You guys know that I've been looking for apartments on and off, and we've been seeing apartments. It's just been so much more expensive, especially in the neighborhood that we're in now. Our apartment is $3,600 and it's really hard to top that given the current market. So I've been looking for change. On the topic of if I want to stay in New York City forever, I don't think I want to be here forever. Maybe Brooklyn. I really love Brooklyn. Like once you move to Brooklyn, your perception of like city life is very different. But I think it's either Brooklyn, Jersey, or maybe moving back to Maryland, maybe moving to LA or something. I've never lived in LA and I just keep hearing great things about it. And I'm really interested. I'm really curious what living in LA is like, but I don't know if it'll happen anytime soon though. I have so many questions that I think I will have to answer in a future Q&A or maybe even like a podcast get to know me, because I know there's been new viewers on the podcast. But I wanted to do a very quick hot seat round so we could knock out a few more questions, and I think I'll do a follow-up career chat soon, and then I'll probably also do a get to know me on the podcast. I don't know, is get to know me kind of weird to have on a podcast? Maybe. Hot seat time. First question. What's your favorite way to unwind after a bad day? I think this is actually a really easy answer for me because I just go to the pottery studio. Just something about being in the pottery studio, maybe because it is so loud and chaotic outside and sometimes in the apartment. When you live in New York City, the pottery studio is usually very quiet, or someone has some nice like indie music playing, and it just lifts my mood up because I get to kind of like shut my brain down whenever I'm doing pottery, and I get to catch up on music and podcasts that I'm listening to. I've been really wanting to create Spotify playlists recently to share with you guys, but I think that's one option. If I'm too tired to go into the pottery studio, I actually really like to clean, and I don't know if that's an actual good way to unwind because you're just being busy and active again, but I think cleaning makes me really happy because generally the apartment is actually kind of messy, and lately it's been getting worse and worse because the more stuff we have, the harder it is to clean. But the end result of having a clean apartment feels so nice. Like sometimes I'll clean and I'm like, wait, I forgot the apartment was this spacious. I think cleaning also clears my head. And then I've been trying to get into books. If I'm too tired to read the text in the book, I actually just pop in an audiobook and I'll just like lay down on my couch and then just listen to the audiobook. So that is another thing that I like to do. Are you traveling anywhere soon? I am. So I'm actually going on a trip with James soon because one of my friends is getting married, and I think timing wise it is a little rushed because I am getting back to work. But this wedding I knew about beginning of the year. We've had tickets for like the last half year, so I'm very excited. So we're actually hitting a few places in Europe. We're going to Paris, Barcelona, and Spain. The wedding's going to be in Spain. Is Moose getting a little bro? I got this question a lot. I really, really want to get another cat. I just don't know if Moose is going to be territorial. I think in my head, the thought process is once we move to a bigger apartment, where there's maybe more space for Moose and another cat to run around, we might get another cat. But I'm hoping it is on the horizon because I know younger cats also do need companionships and other pets to be around. So we'll see. What are some ways you like to spend time with your parents when you visit them? This is a good question. I've been trying to go back home and visit my parents, especially in the time that I was gone from work. I actually had more time to go back home for a week and like spend time with my parents. But now that they're getting older, I think a lot of the time that I do spend with them, I want to spend very intentionally and doing things that are valuable for my relationship with my parents or for their health. So I bought them like a badminton set, but they really enjoy it. I think my parents aren't competitive, but they're very jokey and they really like to make fun of each other. So badminton's been a really fun activity that I've gotten them into. Maybe I should get them into pickleball. But I also like to take long walks with them, and I really like long walks. I've been taking walks with them pretty much every day that I'm back with them. A bonding exercise that my mom and I do is we trim the cat's nails because I have 2 cats at home. I have Honey and Gata, and the OGs will know who they are. And then I've been trying to get my mom to exercise a lot, so I will do these like workout routines with her. It's like a watered down Blogilates, but there's that. And then my dad loves Chinese TV, like those Chinese game shows, dating shows, so he always like makes me watch it with him. So those are kind of the things that I do when I'm at home. They also like to lecture me on a lot of things, so when I'm home I'm just like sitting there and they lecture me. And then I also have my child of immigrant duty, so they have a pile of mail that they keep for me to review and go through and fill out forms whenever I'm at home too. So there's that. But I think I do a lot of things when I'm at home, and they really keep me grounded and remind me of like my childhood and who I am at the core. So I really enjoy whenever I do get to go home. I think I'm gonna end the Q&A here. I got so many questions. I think I got the most questions I've ever gotten when I've asked for Q&A questions from you guys, so I do want to answer more of it. It might trickle into a podcast episode, or maybe I'll just do a follow-up Q&A soon. But thank you for everyone that wrote in, and thank you for everyone that's been around and like been supporting me. I know it doesn't seem like a transition period, but I really think it feels like a transitionary period in my life right now. I'm trying to keep up with everything as much as I can. I also really appreciate each and every one of you, and I'm so grateful and thankful that you're around and you've stuck around. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys for listening.